First of all, thank you very much to the Beijing Municipal Culture and Tourism Bureau for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Steve Saxon, I'm a partner with McKinsey, and I'm based in our China office. I lead our travel and tourism work across the whole of Asia. Today, I'm going to share with you some insights drawing on our customer research around the consumer confidence globally and also in China around travel, and then draw some implications of that for Beijing. First, as we get into this, we should remember while today we're talking about opening and we're talking about travel and the resumption of normal life, we should remember that first of all, COVID-19 is primarily a humanitarian crisis. Thousands of health professionals around the world are battling the virus and putting their own lives at risk. And our priorities as a firm, first of all, are in tackling the virus, saving lives and saving people's livelihoods. You can see more on McKinsey.com on the work we're doing to combat the virus and its effects. Today, in particular, we're talking about livelihoods and the livelihoods in the travel and transportation industries. I'll start by looking at the consumer confidence around the world. And we track this every month through our global surveys. And there's a starkly different picture emerging by country. First of all, there's no clear trend. Some countries are getting worse over time, some countries are getting better, and we do see that linked to the spread of the virus in each location. Also, clearly standing out here is the optimism within China. The confidence in the country's own economic recovery is the strongest that we see in the world. That follows through on the next chart to looking at the implications for travel. And in our surveys, we ask about the expectations. Do you expect to be traveling more or less after COVID-19 relative to pre-crisis? Again, China is starkly different to others here. We're seeing still there's an expected decrease in travel, but that decrease is much smaller than in many other countries. And that's going to have implications for how tourism returns. In most cases, we see that international travel, well, for China especially, international travel is expected down further than domestic. However, there is some positive news here, which is looking at other countries. We actually see the expected decline in domestic travel higher than international travel. And so international travel, there is still latent demand and people are still wanting to travel. Currently, I think as we all know, that international travel is very difficult to China itself. This chart looks at what happens in terms of weekly airline capacity. And currently the airline capacity is like 90% down from where it was this time last year. The lighter lines on this chart also show you what the previous schedules were. And so what's happening here is basically the airlines continue to push back the schedules as the quarantine restrictions remain in place and the testing restrictions also tighten for inbound travel to China. The passenger numbers are therefore down 98% inbound to China from where they were this time last year. On a more optimistic note though, we do see some latent inbound demand to China. McKinsey has partnered together with IATA, the global aviation sector body, and we've developed the Air Travel Pulse, which is an online tracking service available to all airlines, plus I think IATA ticketing agents as well. And through this, we can track the inbound travel to China. And the good news is that there is some. Like if we're looking at August, there's sort of 18,000 searches of people looking at ticketing inbound to China. And that's a lot higher than it was earlier in the year. So we are seeing consumers, travelers, tourists still kind of looking out there, searching, even if they're unable to travel at the moment, there is still interest in travel. Travel bubbles have been mentioned. Now, the progress on these so far is relatively limited. Macau obviously has opened to as a source and destination market for domestic tourists. But if we look at the international inbound markets, there was some discussion around Singapore or around Korea. However, those really at the moment are very small scale and are targeted at inbound executives. There's also a lot of friction through the process, requiring applications and requiring tests. So we're not going to see the large scale resumption of inbound tourism until there are much more open borders between the countries. The opportunity, therefore, for Beijing, at least in the short term, is going to be significantly domestic. And through our surveys, we actually take the temperature of how confident consumers are in China with different types of travel. On chart 9, what this shows is the progression of consumer confidence over time. Initially looking in our May survey, then our June survey, and then looking now in our September survey. And you can see that all confidence in all types of travel have increased, and at least the domestic travel, so local, short haul, long haul trips within China, the confidence is close to back to normal. It's still not, people still aren't scoring it a 5 that it's totally back to normal, but they're indicating that they are confident and comfortable in making domestic trips. That includes leisure trips, it includes business trips. As expected, the confidence in outbound trips is still low, however, has shown some improvement. That has flowed through into what we've seen with domestic airlines. This chart shows what's happened in terms of the capacity and the passenger numbers. And as of today, the capacity in terms of number of seats is pretty much back to where it was this time last year. There's been the airlines have gradually added back capacity slightly ahead of demand, so number of passengers as of last month at least was still slightly lower. However, we're seeing a full recovery at the moment in domestic travel. That includes leisure travel and it includes business travel as well. This could be good news for China. What this chart looks at is the relative benefit to the country if all of the tourism spending which used to be outside the country is actually redirected and is spent inside the country. China was a very large outbound tourism market, and Chinese consumers, as you can see, spent $238 billion US more outside China than international tourists spent inside China. Given that the international travel is difficult, if not impossible, for many Chinese travelers at the moment, some of that spend is being redirected locally. And we're actually seeing some very positive results, especially from some of the higher end hotels and resorts, seeing some high booking levels and highest ever average daily rates as these the affluent tourists who were leaving China are redirecting that into China. This is clearly a big opportunity for all domestic tourism within China, is capturing that latent spend from the local domestic market. Looking at Beijing in particular, obviously there was a recent COVID outbreak, and we can see what happened in terms of traffic and passenger numbers over that time. That outbreak, of course, was well controlled, and we've seen travel pretty much pick back up as of August to the levels it was before the crisis. So it shows that there is consumer confidence in Beijing. However, if we look at where consumers are traveling at the moment, the blue numbers here look at the top 10 destinations in 2020 based off Ctrip's data. And you'll see they are all significantly west. They are in inland destinations. Consumers are looking for open space. They're looking for interesting outdoor nature and leisure activities. And so we've actually seen a bit of a shift from the 2019 top cities towards the 2020 top cities. Beijing's opportunity would be to get itself onto this list. At the moment, it is not in the top 10 destinations over this summer. So thank you very much. To close, there's a real opportunity here. We're excited about the opportunity for Beijing tourism, initially from the domestic tourists. There's a lot of international spend which could now be redirected locally and captured by Beijing tourism hotels and also tourism providers. International will be an opportunity. There is a latent demand of people wanting to travel to China. Now, it's going to require the travel restrictions to be lifted and the quarantine restrictions to be lifted. That's clearly several months away at the moment, but we do still see an interest and a latent demand in travel to China from internationally. We therefore encourage all Beijing tourism providers to be thinking about what they can do to re-energize the value proposition for the domestic tourist. Travel is not just about leisure tourism. We think Beijing can lead the domestic business recovery as well. Business travel has returned pretty much to normal, and we start to see, for example, luxury hotels having high occupancy rates similar to what they were seeing pre-crisis. The international business recovery will take longer. McKinsey's done some research which is available online. We think that while most business travel will come back, there's maybe 20% of it which has structurally changed through the use of Zoom, through the use of online meetings. However, still, most business travel will come back, and Beijing will remain one of the top cities in China for inbound business travel. Finally, there are some aspirations and desires of consumers which we do think have changed. One of those is, as I mentioned, there is a structural shift in business travel, but also because consumers are showing some movement away from the kind of large bus tours forced around a particular set of sites into smaller, more tailored trips. We're seeing a greater preference for leisure and outdoor destinations, and we think some of these aspirations will stick beyond COVID-19. Thank you very much again for the opportunity to talk to you. I wish you all the best with the rest of the conference. Thank you.